Yes, okay.
You don't have to. Welcome.
Okay, you do it. You're so good at it.
I don't even remember how I normally start it, but welcome to another episode of the Alphawaves pod.
Yes.
In the building with your lovely hosts, myself, Darren, and my wonderful co-host, Kam.
Hello, everyone. We are back again.
How you feeling? You good?
Yes, I am good. How are you?
I'm alright, you know. I'm alright, yeah.
Good. Let's move on.
Yeah. No, I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm good.
Me too. I'm feeling very in my blessings today.
Yeah.
Mm.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Before we jump into our episode topic of the day, I want to say thank you once again for everybody that's interacting with us on our social media.
Yeah, for sure.
Follow us on TikTok at Alphawaves Podcast. Look for this symbol and colour scheme and you'll see us somewhere floating around it. Out of that into this. Today's topic.
Yes, is
all about
quitting. Why are we doing this?
I don't know.
I like it. I like it as well.
Yeah.
We should do that more often.
What was we on? About
quitting.
Good and bad habits.
Yeah, quitting habits. Quitting good and bad habits. Are habits even good and bad, or is it what you make of them?
Because there is such a thing as a good habit.
Yeah, for sure. But I feel there's also such a thing as any good habit turning into a bad habit. Moderation, baby. That's what you that's what you need.
No, for real. Too much of one thing's never great, they say.
Exactly. And good things take time.
How do you find it? What's the it that I'm talking about? How do you find
such a ball.
It was, I just thought about it.
And then you looked at me with so much expectation. I'm like, please, we're recording. Give me something.
I don't know what it's me this week. I've done it a few times. I was talking to someone and I was just like, so how does she do this or something? And then they was like, who's her? Like,
and
who are you
do
talking
what?
about? I don't know.
Just so abstract.
Yeah, my head's been a bit clouded. I feel like people know what I'm talking about, or even when I haven't said it. But no, how do you find dealing with habits? How do you find creating habits? Sorry.
So you know what? I feel like I didn't really have a great way of creating habits because I'd start too steep. Like I'd want to do everything overnight in one day. So now I'm taking whatever habit I want to do and doing the smallest version of that and building it up, because I'm recognizing that, you know, it's muscle memory. Your brain is a muscle. You're training that. So for example, if you're in the habit of waking up every morning and scrolling through your phone, it's too much to expect that you are going to switch from that straight away the next day and be in a habit of meditating straight away instead. So, you know, things take time.
Is it about breaking character almost?
You know what? With certain habits, deeper habits, I've definitely had to consider identity with that and what I feel like I'm gaining and losing there. Because things do become part of your fabric sometimes.
So I wanted to start off with the initiation stage of creating a habit, because I don't think there's any point talking about breaking a habit
until
focus on how you actually create these habits.
Yeah.
So the reason I asked you need to break a character, right, is because say it's within your character you've developed it for a long time, be in a certain way. And now what you want to do is the complete opposite.
Yeah.
If you don't change who you are internally as a person, then what's the likelihood that you're going to sustain this new habit that you want to create in your life?
It's true. And you know what? There was something really interesting that I read about breaking habits, and it's asking yourself what the unconscious agreement is with yourself. Yeah. So for example, just like a random hypothetical, but say if your habit is going to the pub every day after work and chilling with your friends or whatever and doing that every single day, and you know that now that you want to stop drinking, etc., you would set yourself up to say, okay, I'm not going to do this anymore. But for some reason, end of the day, you find yourself back at the pub.
Yeah.
And it's not that you love the drinking or this, that, and the other. The unconscious agreement that you have with yourself is, if I don't do this, I'm going to be forgotten by my friends. Or if I don't do this, the alternative is feeling really lonely at home. I'm very aware of that. So I feel like when you're breaking a habit, you need to look at what you're actually agreeing to there and pull at that thread to break that habit.
How easy is that to do when it's not instantly recognizable, though?
It's not easy, you know. I've grown to learn that some answers don't come in a moment or in a day. Like, you need to sit on things sometimes. But it is important to ask yourself those questions. And truthfully, deep down, I feel like those answers aren't that hard to get to, because you know why you're doing things when you ask yourself. Sometimes it's just the absence of asking yourself that question.
I guess so. But sometimes habits, I don't know, do you believe habits can creep up on you? Or do you think it's a conscious decision?
Do you mean bad habits?
We can go there. I wasn't going to go there yet. I just meant good. I started off on the good.
You're trying to take it the scenic route. I think habits can definitely creep up on you for sure. And then before you know it, you are full blown in dopamine city, just
enjoying the fruits of it, if you want to call it that.
Well, sometimes, and then also having to pay up the consequences.
Yeah. I mean, when do you notice the breaking point? So say you wanted to start on bad habits. Let's talk about bad habits for a minute, right? Let's say you've indulged in something, you've enjoyed it, but you know within yourself, I can't let this become a habit in my life, right?
Yeah.
But every time you do it, you enjoy it. When is the breaking point when you're like, does it always have to go to the extreme for you to say, I need to stop?
Not always. I feel like it depends on certain things. So there's certain things that I find, if I'm not necessarily starting to do it every day, but feel the pull of it every day, even if that day I didn't want to, or even if the next day I know that what I'm going to do today is going to affect that negatively. When the habit starts feeling like that, you know, like second nature, like a pull, then I think that's a good first indicator. Another habit that I'd say that definitely creeps up on you, or had crept up on me before, was like an eating habit, you know, like junk food and stuff like that. And I didn't start realizing that was a habit until my body changed.
But you see, the difficulty with that is that a lot of it is mental, right? But a lot of it is your body craving some things that you've started to put inside it.
Yeah. But even like, sorry, not to cut across, but even like some habits are mental, especially things like, you know, the earlier example I gave, things that make you feel good at the time and relieve your stress and stuff like that. But then, for example, with eating, that was a habit that snuck up on me because it wasn't for an emotional reason. I was just home more often. It was there. It tasted good. So, and then you just end up doing things. And I feel like, especially at that time where I felt, you know, pretty happy with my body prior, I felt like I had a lot more leeway. Like I could do these things and it not affect me. And then before you knew it, I couldn't fit into anything.
I mean,
I'll say it. It that snuck up on me, and I was like, why do I look different in my pictures all of a sudden? so yeah,
the realization kicked in. No, I get it, but it's the thing with that, is, again, like I'm saying, is that's not a conscious decision, right? That you made, but there was a point where you say it took for you to see yourself in a certain light for you to say enough's enough, right?
Yeah.
Say now you're doing something and you don't physically notice the change, but you still know what you're doing isn't the greatest. How do you break that habit?
Those ones are really tough because I'm not gonna lie, with certain habits I really waited until it became a problem before noticing that I had to do something about it. And even after that point, it still took me a while to do something about it.
Yeah.
So it is it isn't easy. It is really hard. But on the back of that, what I'll say is the most success that I've had with quitting habits has actually been focusing on it less. You know, for example, let's use vaping as an example. When it's in my head, like you wake up in the morning and you're like, you can't vape, we're going to have a vape-free day. Yeah. And I'm saying that throughout the whole day. What's in my focus is vaping. So that's in my field. So the whole day.
You're thinking about not vaping.
Exactly. And what am I doing? I'm obviously going to vape. But when you... So I feel like with quitting bad habits, and obviously it depends on what the habit is. Like if it's turned from habit to addiction, that's obviously a different
level of
formula. Yeah, exactly. Like it requires different, more extreme changes and activity on your part to change it. But I feel like with things like that, or even scrolling on TikTok, that became a real habit for me. And it turned... Yeah, for me, the way that I kind of broke those habits was by focusing on something else, because it wasn't like an addiction or like a full craving or something like that where I needed to be actively doing something about it. So for me, it was more like out of sight, out of mind, even out of sight in my mind.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Do you think it always needs to be a problem for you to stop it though? Because you said that once it got to a problem stage, that's what often when you...
No, obviously the wiser thing to do is to stop things. I feel like that's a trick question.
I'm really not setting you up. I'm just asking for yourself.
Really?
For yourself, I'm saying. Like,
yeah.
Does it always need to become a problem for you to be able to stop it?
It depends on the habit, because again, like coming back to unconscious agreements, I feel like I definitely have or had a lot of unconscious agreements, and the more I did the work on that, which isn't easy work to do, and you can still today, this week, last week, get lost in that part. You do need to do that to move forward. And I think also one thing that helps me to stop it becoming a problem, I think in the past I was more like that. I'm not as much like that now.
Yeah.
But it's to kind of hold the vision in your head of who do you actually want to be, like what is it that you want to be, who do you want to feel, what do you want to feel like, all those things. And hold that as deeply to yourself and as consciously as you can, because then it's a bit easier to say, no, not this.
Of course. But that's like in the ideal world, right? Because technically, 9 out of 10 habits do make you feel good when you're doing it.
They do. So I think, again, it's paying attention to the thoughts before you do the thing, you know?
Beforehand, yeah.
Yeah, and also pay attention to what's making me want to do this, you know? Like, for instance, I know that if I'm feeling a lot of uncertainty in a moment, then I'd want to do that. Or a friend actually gave me an example, like she was going out and she was feeling a little bit of social anxiety, and so she had an espresso which just does not sit well with her, and she knew that it wouldn't, and she did it. And she said that, you know, part of why that happens sometimes is so that you have an easier issue to focus on than the larger issue at hand. So again, being aware of what's driving you to do those things helps. But also, I had another thing and it's left my head.
How much does consequences play a part into it for you?
It plays a part. It plays a big part. But one thing I will say is I'm quite a high functioning bad habit person.
High functioning bad habit person.
Let me...
Something about that sentence sounds off, but go on.
Okay, well...
Not off in the terms of like it doesn't make sense. It sounds like there's a contradiction in there somewhere.
There is. Because the thing with me is, because I can push through a lot of things, those habits I felt weren't affecting me so much.
Right.
So then it lessens the risk associated with it. So you can still function if you do certain things.
Yeah.
So then Why?
That sounds so crazy.
Why is that funny?
Because like there's habits, yeah, and then there's addicts, and that sounded like I'm a functioning addict at certain things.
I know.
But anyway, go on.
You know what? Sometimes it really does get like that, and that's when you have to again look at yourself with who you want to be. And I think one thing that was big for me this year was wanting to bridge the gap between potential and being my potential, and getting sick of that, and sometimes you have to be harsh with yourself and just say, like,
100.
what do you want? And then that made me realize I was so scared of what I wanted too, not just scared of am I capable, but the subconscious thoughts that may be associated with success sometimes, like for instance, what is your relationship with success? And sometimes I feel like there may be a subconscious belief there that success might bring more problems or alienate you sometimes, or make you less reachable to people who are still in those habits.
Yeah.
And you, again, like, those are the unconscious agreements. So you have to address that stuff.
But it's yeah, no, I get what you're saying. Funny, like, you mentioned success, right? There's a thing of being addicted to success.
Yeah.
But to be addicted to success, you have to have the habit of doing something, right? So if you spin that in the opposite direction, every time you think of habit, it's a repetition of doing something, right? And you said also that it's when you have a pull for something. So say there's something that you only get that pull to do when you're in a certain part of your life, or when you're in a certain place. Do you think that because it's controlled, it's healthy?
I do think so, actually.
I don't know why I took so long to say that. Sorry. Go on.
I liked it, though. It was very clear. Very different from your previous fill the gap with the question.
Go on.
But yeah, because that's the thing. Moderation is key. And I feel like sometimes what drew me to indulging in a habit more was thinking of never doing it again and putting that kind of pressure on yourself. And when I thought back to previous habits, I was like, there was a point you used to do this all the time, and then you now do not do it again. And there wasn't as much energy that I put into it to achieve that outcome than I'd realized. Like, I thought you have to put
a lot more energy into it. Yeah.
And that's not always the case. So I feel like if there's certain habits that you want to do in certain settings, then you can do that if you feel like that's not going to make you want to bring that in your day to day and turn it into a daily habit anymore. Because I feel like there's some settings where it is fun to do certain things and it's appropriate for the setting.
That's true also. That does weigh heavily on your decision making.
Yeah.
But
because then you end up binging whatever you're trying to start.
Yeah. It's finding that balance, I think, sometimes, because again, it depends on what you're into and what your habit is.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's good to have that little thing that takes you away from your norm.
Yeah.
And sometimes it is part of your norm, actually. Let me take that back, because sometimes there's some things that you do that is a habit.
Yeah.
Like you said, waking up. When you wake up in the morning, you might have a habit of doing, I don't know, whatever sets you up for the day. You take that away, and then your day is completely finished. Yeah. It's not going to run the same way.
It's true. And even though what I said earlier on about being high functioning and things not affecting you too much, at the same time, what I will say is sometimes you don't realize how much something is affecting you, in terms of like the way that you think, the way that you move through the day, your thoughts. For instance, when I know that I do have an earlier night and I sleep better, I am literally like a different person, and not just a different person externally, how I feel within myself, like my thoughts, the quality of them, what I'm thinking about is totally different from a day, say, again, to the earlier example, like a day where I have been vaping, So you kind of have to, when you're quitting something and it's hard, you have to remember that this moment is so temporary, and what's on the other side. Rhetorical question, but
Very much so. No, but it does get you thinking, because as you said that, I was just thinking of, see me, yeah, I've not really ever got to a point of an addiction. I don't think.
Well, good for you. No, I'm joking.
But I have had a point where I did have a habit of doing something, right? And it's a case of recognizing, does it benefit me to do this or not?
Yeah.
But finding it out, if you've got no reason to find it out, it's almost impossible to pinpoint it.
What do you mean?
Like, if there's, like, that's what I asked earlier, if there's no problem, what am I stopping?
But then I feel like you're on a slope. Do you know what I mean?
But because I've never ever reached to the furthest extent, I always feel like I've got it under control.
That's a really fair thing to say, you know. Some people are like that, where they have an innate detachment, and some people have addictive personalities.
That's very true.
I am was one of those people. Yeah, like I know that I have a tendency to overindulge and create a habit. So for me, I have to be very mindful of that. And also, for instance, say with certain habits, say you do certain things.
Enlighten us. No, I'm joking. So can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
See these things that you speak of, right? Like,
yes.
When you're
these private things, yes.
When you're now in a place where where it's not taken away from you, but you're taking it away from yourself, how does it make you feel?
It's more than that. It's thinking, like, okay, I'll be transparent. Like, for example, if I'm smoking something, whatever.
Don't say smoking something. Let's be very, because that could be interpreted.
I just didn't know if it was going to be blocked out if we post it.
We can do, but don't say smoking something.
Because it just sounds a bit wild, isn't it? Like, what you said addicted, what?
Let the smoking part be interpreted, not the something. Yeah, I'm with you.
All right, say if you're smoking some weed sometimes, right? And
it applies for cigarettes too. Go on.
Well, you this is why we debrief before. We just flipped a coin and jumped in. But anyway, say if you're smoking, and then I'll use weed because it is a good example. So say if you are smoking weed and it makes you feel really good and clear-minded and connected, and you can see things with more clarity, all of that is true in the moment. That is, for me personally, what is happening. Like, I am able to zoom out and see things from a bigger picture and have certain realizations. But that process is taking me from A to B in terms of a mindset, like a fixed lack mindset, for example, to suddenly an abundant mindset where I'm able to see solutions. But what happens after is I haven't understood what the bridge is to get to A to B. So in my day to day, I don't know or didn't know how to go from that space into the next space. And coupled with that, I'm now having to pay the consequences of what happens when you're sober. You know, like, you are more tired. There are certain things. Your mindset is even worse than it was before, for me personally. So for me, what kind of stopped me from smoking with that intention and more regularly, and turned it into what we just spoke about, a habit that, well, not really a habit, as something that I enjoy in the appropriate setting. Yeah, or on the off day. On the off day, what drove that for me was thinking about my growth. And I was like, I'm flashing from one place to another and I'm not learning how to do that myself. So that was a motivator in terms of thinking about, how can I be in that space? You know, how can I be in the B space permanently? As opposed to using something to get
I'm messing with you. You see, like, so when you're in that process, right? And you fall back, how does it make you feel?
it doesn't make me feel good. Like, you do feel stagnant and behind and disappointed in yourself but also just time. Like, you feel like you're wasting time because there's other issues in my life that I need to resolve within myself, but I keep pushing this issue forward. And again, with the example that I gave with my friend, that also made me realize that, because I was like, I'm complaining about smoking too much and making this the issue, whereas I'm not dealing with the bigger or more pressing issues that are harder to deal with instead. So you almost use it as an excuse or like a buffer. It's so much easier to complain about a habit that is affecting you but isn't super harmful to your life than to actually dive deeply into the things that hurt you more.
100%, because then you've got to really look at change. Because let's say, for instance, somebody that every morning they feel that they need to have a coffee, right? And it's something that they have looked into and said, I don't want to do that anymore. It's not great for me to start my day with a coffee every day. But the reality is, the reason why every morning they feel they need to have a coffee is because they have a terrible night's sleep the night before. But what's causing that night's sleep, the bad night's sleep before, might take even more out of them to deal with than just continually to have coffee every morning. So there's that element of it. I think there's also a shame element of it almost. And I think that's a lot more personal. Because technically there should be no shame surrounding it, because everybody
has vices.
100%. It just depends on what your vices are. And sometimes, depending again on the personality trait that you hold, you could fall into something based on your environment. So, have you been in a situation before, not peer pressure, but your peers are doing something, you've got involved, and now it's become your reality without you even knowing it?
That's an interesting question. And what I will say with myself is I'm actually not a peer pressure person. If there's anything I've done and someone's had to twist my arm to do it, I kind of already wanted to do it. I just didn't want it to be my fault.
Not peer pressure as in, try this or do this, but just more like...
What I will say though is, when you do certain things, like again, the smoking example, you do create like an identity or a bond with certain people, or like a group of people, and you have something in common, and that would definitely played a part in moving away from it as well. That is hard, you know. One thing I do want to say though is, as hard as it is to deal with the things inside of yourself that are affecting you, it is just so rewarding. It's really not as hard as you think. Like, emotions are so temporary when you move through them. So that's just a little side note that I wanted to put in, that there were things that I thought I would never be able to look at in myself because they just made me feel so weird or ashamed, or it was too vulnerable even with yourself, you know. Like, it takes a level of vulnerability to even admit things to yourself that you've smoothed over or think you've smoothed over in your mind. So once you do that, it does turn you into a more braver, resilient person, and you trust yourself more. So then when these habits are creeping up on you again, you trust yourself, because you're like, actually, it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be, and I don't need it.
That's it as well. Like, it's going through the process of being without, and seeing that you don't really need. It's difficult. It's difficult.
And just knowing, like, okay, if I'm going to do this, instead of thinking I'm not going to do this, and then cracking and doing it in the middle of the week and affecting my whole week, I know that I'm going to do it when I have a couple days to relax, like I don't really have anything to do.
To be fair, the thought's most times the thought's harder than the action. Because it's like, you don't see how you're going to actually do this because you're so often doing the opposite.
What do you mean?
So, for instance, even myself, right? There was a period where I used to eat a heavy lunch, let's say. And then I was always like, I don't want to do this no more, right? I want to eat a lot healthier, etc., etc. But the thought process of doing that I didn't even know how I was going to be able to do that, because the first time I tried it, I was hungry as hell. Like I can't do this.
Yeah.
But now I'm in the habit of doing it. I don't feel like, it just feels normal now.
Yeah, that's it. And it's so
normal.
quick. Like, you started this only like a month ago or something. Not to expose your life, but you know.
Damn. Yeah, no, basically, give or take.
But in a month's time, it's just become second nature to you and you feel different, you know?
Completely.
On that same breath, even like with me, like I never thought I'd be the kind of person who could do like a cycling class in the gym and stuff. Or at least do the whole class, because I do like 20 minutes and then leave.
So I can't even banter you about gym anymore. Go on.
I know, this was a while. I haven't done it in a while, but...
You didn't need to do that, but...
You gotta be honest.
I hear you.
But yeah, like I remember there was one point where it was just so hard and I was like, I just cannot do this. I'm gonna just leave, blah, blah, blah. And in my head, I just started thinking of everything in my wish list on this website and all these things and how I'd look in these outfits and why it would be so worth it. And it was like a movie, because I suddenly had all this energy to finish the class. So that's what I mean. Like sometimes holding what you truly desire and believing that it's for you, like you can do that, gets you through.
Yeah, there's definitely a belief level behind it.
Yeah, and what you say to yourself, like even one thing that shifted things for me, especially with smoking, because I'm not going to lie, like that habit really had a grip on me. So I changed my language. Like instead of saying things like, oh, this is so hard, or oh my God, blah, 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 withdrawals, this is this, I hate this, all these things. Because you start with one thought and it's like a snowball, it just builds momentum. So then I'd start saying other things to myself, like, okay, you're going to have the clearest skin, or it's not that deep. It's just a couple more days. You've done so well already. And I've said this before, but definitely encouraging yourself and doing those kinds of things changes a lot.
That makes sense.
And distracting yourself helps.
Because it's that dopamine release that keeps you doing something.
Yeah.
Whether it's good or bad.
And that part is really hard because, well, it's not hard, but that part is a huge factor, because you can get dopamine through your whole day 24/7 in so many different ways. So even like a dopamine detox is really hard. And even that, I would say to myself, okay, and this is for me how I'd set myself up for failure, because I would say this weekend I'm going to have a whole dopamine detox. I'm not going to go on my phone. I'm going to blah, 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 just, you know, dopamine detox. But why do I need to do it for the whole weekend? And then obviously did not do that. Whereas if I just did it for a couple hours in the morning, it gave me what I needed, and you can slowly build momentum. Yeah.
I think that's it. Sometimes you try and do too much at once.
Yeah.
And that's, like you said, you're setting yourself
and
up for
one
failure.
habit at a time, you know, like say going back to your earlier example with quitting coffee, make the habit into, I'm going to do whatever it is that you need to do to have an earlier night. Like start with that and then slowly build up to that habit that you really want to quit. You know, there's never going to be anything bad that comes from playing the long game and being not easier on yourself, but just not having to struggle through everything. Like it doesn't need to be this battle or huge journey. You can enjoy the journey. It can be, you know, it doesn't need to be that hard. You don't have to punish yourself because you have that shame element of doing things that you know that you shouldn't be doing. And I used to do that, and it just made me smoke more.
That's definitely not the outcome you're looking for.
No.
Do you think humans are creatures of habit?
I think so. And I'll give you a small example, but a good one. Like even at work, say if you're hot desking, like that's the work environment, everyone still sits in the same seats. We are creatures of habit.
But you know that we've got a lot more to us than that, right? Like we can overcome habits very easily.
You can, but we are creatures of habit. So you have to decide which habits you're subscribing to, because you can easily change a habit. And by easily, I don't mean overnight. I mean, you can reach that place where it's not in your reality anymore. You know, I've had some crazy habits.
That's what I was going to ask you as a follow-on. Do you think there's any habits that will be stuck with you forever?
No, because there's a habit in particular that I thought was going to be a demon on my back for life, you know, that you're going to be fighting that forever. And I've just realized that life is so limitless, you know, like you really can break an attachment to something, and it doesn't have to be like, if you believe that this is going to be something that's going to stay with you forever, then it will. Especially if you feel ashamed of the habits that you used to have, then, you know, if you don't resolve that, then it is kind of going to be a shadow following you around.
Do you know what's crazy? Yeah? I got this weird outlook sometimes, depending on the habit, right? But sometimes I feel like you just need to overindulge in it so that you're sick of it. Like,
you know what? I'm telling you right now, I have tried that.
It doesn't work.
It did not work for me.
Yeah, sometimes I feel like you just need to see so much of it that you just don't want to see it anymore.
It depends. Again, it's like crossing the line. But it depends on the habit.
But then that can send you over the edge if you're not.
Because also, that's what I used to think sometimes. And then I was like, I'm just more addicted.
See, like maybe
my
that's
body's
the personality
gotten used
trait.
to it now.
Maybe it's the personality trait. If you've got an addictive personality,
maybe
you're feeding that a bit too much.
Maybe, because I know some people who say quitting cigarettes, they've smoked like a pack in one go to quit it. Obviously not that extreme, but like, you know, but I've heard of people like that who've like chain smoked to get sick of it. I didn't do that, but I did try to be like, okay, I'm going to just finish this pack as quickly as I can. And I just bought another one.
Maybe it wasn't enough.
It wasn't enough because for me, my body just got so used to the nicotine. So it was, you know, that's just what ended up happening. But again, it's having that self-awareness with who you are and what you are.
Very much so. Very much so. Not one.
Like there's certain things that I have never done because I just know what I can be like gambling, for example.
Can we touch on that gambling habit? Because I feel like that's such a dangerous field.
Yeah, hugely.
Unless you've got control. So I saw a story recently. Trigger warning, maybe, possibly.
Yeah, trigger warning, because it gets really. I've known some people who had some.
I saw a story recently of a guy, right? And he had a bad addiction. This wasn't even a habit, a bad addiction, right? To betting. And then I don't remember where he stole the money from, or took the money from, I should say. He took the money from, let's say it was his mum. It wasn't, but let's just say. And it was a lot of money. And he put it all into gambling, right? Made some money, put it back in, etc., etc. Ended up losing it all, right? And then he's sent a message to the gambling provider and said, so this is online betting, right? I'm talking about. And then he said to them, you can ban my account after this message. You can do whatever you want to make sure that I don't ever bet again. But please, can I have that money back? And they didn't give it back to him. That's
just really pulled at my heartstring. That's so sad.
He unfortunately ended his life, right, as a result.
Oh, wow.
That's the extreme side of it, right? That's why I said definitely a trigger warning.
Yeah.
But it's that, sometimes it's those little things that you don't factor into it developing into a big habit. Like, as somebody that does online betting myself, I read that story and I was like, how do you even get to that point?
Because it happens, you know, like
I can imagine like the thrill, especially maybe if you win often, which I don't.
Clearly.
I clearly don't. But
you're like, I'm good. I never win, so
maybe that's the
yeah, maybe that's what's helping you.
In all seriousness, it's like those type of things do make me wonder, because it's like, it does, at the time that I'm doing it, it's so minor and I don't do high stake bets or whatever. But then again, I look at other factors in my life, and maybe because I'm not pinning everything on this,
It's true. I read this was years ago. I read this kind of study that was done on gambling, and they were talking about how part of why that turns into an addiction is because gambling feels like to you that you can control it, you know, like you feel like you know the odds, you know the game, it's not just rolling the dice, you're being strategic. But the hard fact is sometimes you win and sometimes you don't. It's actually not, not something that you can't bet on gambling. There's
not a science to it. As much as you want to believe, there's things that you can do to tip the scale in your favor. Yeah. But there's not a science to always winning. Yeah. It's impossible.
It's not real. Like that's just not a thing, you know? And I think the difference between someone like you and someone who goes too far down that line is the thought process behind it. Like, you know that this is just a fun little hobby that you do sometimes just to indulge, see if you win, see if you don't. Like, you're going in knowing that you're rolling the dice. It's a 50-50 thing. Whereas other people are going there to say, if I just win this money, then I'll blah, 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 you know? That's where the problem is when you're looking at things like that.
It's true. Yeah. And your reliance on it as well, because again, for some people, I know people that make a living off it, right? Yeah. But let's say, I don't know if you want to call it gambling. So that's like, let's say that's online betting and gambling, right? But say, because I read this story also, there was somebody during the height of cryptocurrency during COVID that put all their money into something off the belief of other people, right? And ended up losing it. So in a sense, that is gambling, right? Because you're high stakes gambling because you've got no knowledge of what you're doing. Yeah. That person was chasing something because of what they saw, if that makes sense. So
they bought into the dream.
Yeah, they bought into a dream, right? But at the same time, if they did succeed in that, now they would have been in a position, more than likely, where they would have felt that this is something I can continue to do. Yeah. So sometimes it's like, you don't even get into a position where you're allowed to go through. You don't get a chance to get through to the other end, basically. Like, sometimes you get involved in something and before you know it, you're so knee deep that getting out of that, you don't even get a chance to do it, which is the unfortunate side of like getting addicted or falling into habits.
It's true. Like, I'll be honest, I have had some addictions, and it was a naivety on my part, just not really seeing how that would play out, or seeing the people around me and thinking, oh, they don't really have a problem, so it won't really be a problem for me. But these things, you know, you can't underestimate how quickly it becomes part of your personality, your life, your society, and how just never say never. Like, never think that you can go above science, you know, and how your body's going to react to things. And because also with things, you know, with things like drugs, for example, it's eroding you as each time you do it. If you think of your brain as like a lovely marble egg, each time you do it, there's a crack. So you're weakening not just your body and it craving things, but you're also weakening your mindset, and you start thinking about everything differently, like your life differently. So then you feel like you need things more.
It's true. It
gets so real so fast.
If you know somebody and you can see that the habit that they're getting into, or addiction, we've gone past habit to the addiction stage,
we've gone deep now.
So the second stage of habits is the addiction stage. If you can see somebody and they're on a downward spiral, would you intervene?
I have done that,
How would you do that? Or how have you
So with me, like, one thing that I learned just through myself is that no one actually, a lot of people tried, no one could get me out of what I was in. It had to be me. So that's one thing I've carried, that not making it my responsibility when I can see someone doing something, and just accepting the fact that they need their own support, you know, and you can support them to get that, but you cannot do something for someone because no one could do something for me. It really had to be me who decided enough was enough, and then take the necessary steps, like not seeing certain friends anymore, not going to certain places, being in certain places and saying, no, you know, it's hard, but you have to do it. So with me, it was more like noticing that someone's going through a tough time, so they're indulging in certain habits more, and just gently saying like, are you okay? Because I'm noticing you're doing this more often. Like, you should probably chill with that. Sometimes just saying that can be enough, you know, and they appreciated it a lot, and they did take it on, or at least were aware of it. Because sometimes you think no one's noticing what you're doing, or you're not even noticing what you're doing. You're just trying to alleviate your pain.
Yeah.
But sometimes it just takes someone saying like, I see you, you know, are you okay, to do that. One thing that doesn't help though, that didn't help me, I feel, is giving someone a hard time for what they're doing. You know, it's, if someone's already doing something from a low place, kicking them when they're down is not going to help them.
For sure. But there's the element of tough love that's needed sometimes.
I feel like consequences and the harsh reality of that is the tough love.
You're right.
I would say love is what's needed, you know. I'll give an example, like Demi Lovato. She had that whole thing where, you know, she was hospitalized for her addictions. You obviously didn't know that.
Was there like a documentary?
Yeah.
I saw it on TV. But
There was. That's where I'm getting. That's my source for this.
Okay,
Okay. But one thing that really, got to me in a good way was when she was in a really, really bad state with her health. So, like, I think at one point she was even blinded or something, like she lost her sight. Like, some extreme things happened as a result of what she did. Like, she very nearly overdosed, or I think she did overdose, but then came back, and then there was a long period of recovery. Yeah. And she was saying, and people do think this, that once you go so far, it scares you into never doing that again. But that's the journey of addiction. You do relapse, and she did relapse, and everyone around her was so disappointed, and so, you know, like, how could you do this to yourself? How can you put us through this again? And I'm not saying that people around you who watch you go through things, it's not hard for them. I think it's harder to watch someone you love go through these things.
100%.
Really hard. But one of her people, I don't know who it was, they just hugged her and just gave her so much love after it happened, because they understood that as much as it's hurting us, you must be so hurt by yourself right now, doing something that you so desperately don't want to do, that you've now done again. And that shifted things for her, you know. It gave her people to fight for rather than fight with.
Yeah, sometimes you just need the presence of people rather than people trying to offer alternatives and all of
exactly. Like, it doesn't mean that the alternative is saying it's okay, it's fine, it was a mistake.
But that's why I said it. Maybe tough love's the wrong word, but reality, let's say.
Yeah, I think the reality is more like, I love you, I know you love you, like, you can do this, I know you think you can't, but you can, you know. Or saying, like, people who are in that position, they're very aware of what they're doing to their lives. Like, they're in their life, you know. You don't need to tell them, you're ruining your life, or this is what you're doing, or do you know what's going to happen? They know what's going to happen.
But a lot of people don't, though. Some people fall into stuff as coping mechanisms.
True. And I guess when it's that earlier point, then fine. But I don't know. I just feel like, for me anyway, I try to look at, what is the outcome of this conversation? Like, what do I want this person to understand? And sometimes you can lecture someone and it's not really going to do something, you know. Again, like, even a smaller example, like, say you've got a child who just won't go to school or do their homework. You can tell them, like, you're going to be this, that, and the other. You're not going to have a good job, blah, blah, blah. And it just makes them more anxious. It doesn't really do any, like, they're aware of that. They're aware that they're self-sabotaging. And I think I try to think of what's the most effective thing I could say to them. And the more effective thing that I could say is, you actually could be something, and right now you're letting yourself down, and that's a shame. You know, and just point out, because it's when you're in that place as well, not just with drugs or addiction, but in any kind of place, you do feel so undeserving, like you don't see who you are or your potential. So it's more beneficial, in my opinion, to be on the other side and tell someone like, you are still capable of something amazing. It's not all over yet. Like, you remind them of who they truly are, like speak to their soul. I feel makes a difference, you know. Like, you deserve, you, even though you've done this, that and the other, and you're still doing it, you are still deserving of good things.
Yeah, that shouldn't define who you are as a person.
It shouldn't, but it does. Like, when, like, you do just feel so...
Yeah.
Because it's hard. Like, you do just feel so ashamed and down on yourself. And then you think no one else is having this issue.
That's it. It does feel very lonely when you're going through things like that. It's crazy. It does.
And even after the fact, like when you've stopped doing the habit, like again, you do still feel like, I can't believe I was even like that, or this, that and the other. And you just have to own it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
One thing I like to say is, you know what? I lived life. Want to tell the grandkids, maybe not. But but I came here on this earth to experience things. And I experienced them. I'm a multifaceted person. You know, if there's anyone out there who's struggling with those kinds of things, like, those are the things I told myself. And it did help to remind yourself that you're more than this. This is just part of your experience.
Things change week to week, year to year anyway. So you can't hang on to what you're going through at the minute. You
can't. Like, I never thought that my life would be where it was at that point. Like, if I look back 5 years from that, I never think I was there. And I would never think that I could be here from where I was either.
No, of course. It's all part of the journey, like you're saying.
Yeah.
Definitely is. So on that note, what is one thing, one habit that you have in your life now that you're extremely proud of?
Oh, I have so many.
Okay, you can list more if you want. I just wanted to lighten the tone. So go on. And explain how you got there as well.
One habit I have that I love is meditating.
Right, and how did you get there? What was your journey of that habit?
It's going to go back to a dark place, but...
Oh, wow.
No, I'm kidding. At the time, I just really, like, I kind of fell into it. And it gave me so much relief. Like, it's not for everyone, but I feel like it could be if you're just patient. Like, a lot of people say, and this is what put me off at first, and what would frustrate me is that when you're meditating, your mind is meant to be silent, or it's not meant to wander or whatever. And that's still not true for me sometimes. Like, what I get from meditation, and this is why I like guided meditations, because whatever that person is saying, I just repeat it in my head so my thoughts stay there. But the purpose of it is not to alleviate thoughts altogether. It's to bring your thoughts back, you know, to have discipline with that. And meditation actually transformed my life.
That's cool.
Yeah. Another habit I love, which is a small habit, but every night I like to, or even like early, at some point in the evening, before or even after I shower, I just like to pack everything away, make everything neat and nice, and just do a little tidy up. And tidying as you go along, it has actually been a hugely beneficial habit.
I can see why.
Yeah, that's a pretty obvious one.
I can
But
see why, yeah.
what about you?
Getting a gym routine is a habit that I'm very happy with.
That's really amazing.
Very happy, very happy.
Yeah.
That journey in itself has been difficult in getting a routine, and I still want to add more days to it. But I think it's a mixture of the feeling you get afterwards. Like, I've never felt bad afterwards.
Yeah.
Obviously, the personal progress, you can see the changes after a while.
Yeah.
Not always straight away. But you know what as well? Even though I don't even speak to, well, there's a few people I just say hello to at the gym. But you know, like it's a good feeling when you walk in and you see the same people all the time. The regulars,
and you're a regular, yeah.
Yeah, it's like, you feel like
your gym friends.
There's a comfortable level, like when you're first in there, still kind of just working it, even though nobody even cares what anyone else is doing, you're still trying to work out the room almost. Like,
but feel comfortable in a new space.
When you're a regular and you see your other regulars, it's like that level of
achievement.
And it's like you're not doing, even though it's your personal thing, you know, this person's working on themselves the same way as well.
There's like this unity almost. That you're all doing that, and that is really special. Like when you're in an environment with other people and you're all sharing that same energy of growth and wanting to do better for yourself.
It's crazy because you're not even talking about it, you're just doing. And that's the beauty of it.
And you all know what you're doing. What was that like for you with getting into that habit and turning it into a habit? Because I imagine from when I've tried to do it, it's really hard to like do something that's so painful to your body when you're first doing it and building up the courage. And I feel like with the gym, there's so much that goes into the pre-routine as well, like setting all your stuff. And
definitely it became a lot of self-reliant, because when I used to go gym when I was younger, I used to go with a friend first of all. So there was always that us two leaning on each other, but having to do it independently, seriously, when it's not been something that has been part of your day-to-day makeup for a long while, there's a lot of thoughts that go ahead. And
what keeps you motivated though? What kept you motivated?
I don't know, you know. I think it's the fact that I wasn't happy. Not that I wasn't happy with where I was, but I knew I wanted to improve on what I was. And there was points where I wasn't happy with where I was. Let me not lie, actually, because within myself, I'm like, there's no reason. I'm physically able, mentally able. It's something that I want. So why? There's no reason for me not to do it.
It's true. And I feel like when you get those first bits of progress, that's when the game just changes and you just start feeling amazing.
100%. And I want to be the best version of myself possible in all aspects, like physically, mentally, etc. And I've got a physical setback from an injury, and I feel like there was an element of that side of it where I'll never be 100% in my injured area, but let me try and make the rest of me as sustainable as possible for as long as possible.
I love that so much. I can't remember if this is something I heard or read or just straight off the dome, but there's something about like strengthening. Oh, it's not. Someone did say this to me. There's something about strengthening your strengths so much that your weaknesses just aren't as impactful anymore. But that person who told me this, they said that one thing you do have to do, just to go slightly off topic, is actually write down what your weaknesses are, but they called it improvements. Know what your weak spots are, so you know how to either strengthen those or strengthen things around that. But what I love about that is it makes me think of what I said earlier about life being so limitless, because you could easily say, oh, well, I have an injury, so I can't do this, so and have that hold you back, but you just did it anyway, and it's affected you, I imagine, a lot less than you thought it would.
100%. 100%. It's just a reality check almost.
You gotta check your reality sometimes. You really, really do. And you have to accept that your reality constantly changes, and be aware of that, because I feel like that's such a warm feeling that you can change your reality. Things can be different.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. All right. Well, we've at that time of the show.
Word of advice.
Yep.
Okay.
You want to kick off one?
Okay.
If not, I can hit one.
Go on.
Word of advice would be patience. I just feel with anything, any habit, good or bad, is you've got to have an element of patience. And just go through the process of it. Mainly. I'll keep it short and simple.
I love that. Patience is such a good one. I feel like I want to say that, but I want to add to the conversation. So I'll say my word of advice is probably self-awareness. Self-awareness, know what your triggers are. And when you know what your triggers are, they don't actually trigger you that much.
That's fair. Very fair.
So on that note, everyone, enjoy your habits, good or bad.
However you
Don't enjoy them
pod.
too much.
Let us know when you listen to the pod. What's your habit of listening to Alphawaves?
Yes.
When do you listen to like your listen whatever you listen to? I don't want to give any. Yeah, whatever you listen to.
You know what? I live in organized chaos now and I love it. So I just set out, if there's something I want to listen to, I let the day unfold. And sometimes I'll end up listening to it when I'm on a walk or if I'm cleaning or in the shower.
Interesting.
Yeah, I'm trying to live routinelessly.
So, I listen to
it's working for me though, but yeah, go on.
I listen to like podcasts on my journeys. And then I listen to new music in the gym.
That's a nice place to listen to new music because you're just focused.
And that's the only
you
time
can fully appreciate it.
You can take in a whole project.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you like doing that, don't you?
I used to do it when I drive, but I just can't anymore. I like to just listen to a podcast when I'm traveling.
That's so relaxed. I love that.
Yeah.
I still listen to music on my journeys,
Yeah.
but I'm trying to read when I'm on the train now because I feel like that's such a easy time to do that.
Literally. Yeah. I think that's kind of why I do podcasts as well, because you can learn some stuff.
Yeah. I like to listen to podcasts mostly when I'm walking because I feel like the same with the gym, I guess. Your body is doing something, so you're just more, for me anyway, able to take on the information and then apply it in some way.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, however you do, enjoy this episode.
Yes.
If you're listening on Spotify, let us know. There's an option on there to leave comments, so let us know. And any other social media, get in touch with us.
Yeah. We're always happy to talk.
Yeah. Send us your issues, your anything you need advice on.
Yeah.
And we'll try our best to do what we do.
There we go. Do what we do.
And until next time, thanks for joining us again.
Thank you.